A silent cry for help. The night air carried a deep, lingering chill, wrapping the quiet town in an eerie stillness. It wasn't just the cold that sent a shiver down Lieutenant Daniel Hayes' spine. It was the silence. The kind that didn't feel natural. The kind that pressed down like a warning. Daniel had spent 15 years patrolling this town, knowing every street, every alley, every back road. And tonight, like any other night, he was exhausted after another long shift. He shut the door of his patrol car with a soft click, rolling his shoulders to shake off the tension. But as he took a step toward the station's entrance, he heard it. Footsteps. Quick, uneven. He turned just in time to see a small German Shepherd puppy racing toward him. It wasn't just running. It was desperate, its little paws kicking up dust, its chest rising and falling with heavy, frantic breaths. The puppy was young, maybe 3 or 4 months old, but something about it felt off. It wasn't lost. It wasn't playing. It was on a mission. Daniel froze, watching as the dog skidded to a stop just a few feet away, wide amber eyes locked onto his. Its tail wagged slightly, but there was no excitement in its stance, just determination. And then he saw it. Hanging from its frayed, worn-out collar was a small, crumpled piece of yellowed paper. Daniel's instincts, sharpened by years in law enforcement, screamed at him that something was wrong. His breath came slow and steady as he crouched down, extending a hand. The puppy hesitated, its body trembling slightly, before taking a small step forward, trusting him. With careful hands, Daniel untangled the note from the collar. The paper was old, creased at the edges as if it had been folded and unfolded too many times. The handwriting was shaky, rushed, but the words burned into his mind the second he read them. "Please help me. My name is Sam. I don't have much time." Daniel's chest tightened. A chill crept up his spine that had nothing to do with the cold night air. Who was Sam? Why was a terrified puppy carrying a desperate cry for help? His sharp gaze flicked across the empty street. The small town was still, too still. No movement, no signs of life. Like something had just happened, and the world was holding its breath. His fingers instinctively curled around the note. The puppy let out a soft whimper, nudging its nose against his knee as if begging him to understand. Daniel exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. He had no idea where this was leading him, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just some lost puppy. Someone was out there. Someone needed help, and this small, brave creature had been sent to find him. Daniel pulled open the passenger door of his patrol car. The puppy didn't hesitate. It jumped in, as if it already knew the mission wasn't over. With his jaw clenched and mind racing, Daniel grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Lieutenant Hayes. Run a check on the name Sam. Possible missing person. This may be urgent." The radio crackled softly as he waited. The puppy sat beside him, staring straight ahead, as if it knew exactly where they needed to go. A name that shouldn't exist. The quiet hum of the patrol car's engine was the only sound in the stillness of the night. Lieutenant Daniel Hayes tapped his fingers against the steering wheel, his eyes darting between the puppy sitting in the passenger seat and the empty road ahead. The small German Shepherd pup sat stiffly, ears twitching at the occasional crackle of the police radio. Its amber eyes remained locked on the windshield, as if it could see something beyond the reach of the car's headlights, something Daniel couldn't. Daniel's mind replayed the message scrawled on the crumpled yellow note. "Please help me. My name is Sam. I don't have much time." Who was Sam? And why did this dog carry a message that felt like a whisper from the past? A soft whimper from the puppy broke his thoughts. It shifted in the seat, glancing up at him, its tiny body tensed with something that almost felt like urgency, as if it knew time was running out. Daniel exhaled sharply and reached for the radio. "Dispatch, this is Lieutenant Hayes. Do you copy?" There was a pause, longer than usual. Then static. Finally, the dispatcher's voice crackled through, but there was an odd hesitation in her tone. Lieutenant, did you say the name was Sam? Daniel's fingers tightened around the radio. Affirmative. Run a search. Missing persons. Active investigations. Anything that matches. Silence. A long, unnatural pause. Daniel glanced at the puppy, whose ears had perked up. Its small frame had gone rigid, as if even it could sense something was off. Then, finally, the dispatcher's voice returned, lower now, carrying an edge of uncertainty. Lieutenant, there is one record. Daniel sat up straighter. Go ahead. Another pause. There's a Samuel Carter, age 7, reported missing. 6 years ago. Daniel's pulse slowed. His mind raced to keep up with what he had just heard. 6 years ago, he repeated, his voice quieter now, edged with something unspoken. Yes, sir. The case was closed. Presumed deceased. They never found the body. A slow wave of coldness settled over him. His eyes dropped to the note in his hand again. His thumb brushed over the fragile paper, and suddenly, the words felt heavier. Please help me. My name is Sam. I don't have much time. How could a child who disappeared 6 years ago be sending for help now? The dispatcher hesitated again, then spoke carefully. Lieutenant, I dug a little deeper. There was something strange about the case. The boy's mother, Elaine Carter, reported that she tucked him into bed one night, and by morning he was gone. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. Just vanished. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. The father. Out of town at the time. No witnesses. No leads. The case went cold. His mind struggled to piece together the impossible. That was 6 years ago. And now, out of nowhere, a puppy had appeared, carrying a note with the boy's name. One more thing, Lieutenant, the dispatcher added, her voice even quieter now. There was a dog mentioned in the reports. Daniel's grip on the radio tightened. A dog. Yes, sir. Before Samuel disappeared, neighbors reported seeing a German Shepherd mix hanging around the Carter house, always watching, like it was waiting for something. Daniel's heart thumped hard against his ribs. His gaze flicked to the puppy beside him. After Samuel vanished, the dog disappeared too, the dispatcher finished. For a moment, Daniel just sat there, his breath slowed and measured. His rational mind fought against the thought clawing at the edge of his consciousness. This puppy was too young to be the same dog. That wasn't possible. And yet, here it was. The puppy whined suddenly, pawing at the door, its small body trembling with impatience. Daniel swallowed hard. He had spent 15 years in law enforcement, believing in facts, evidence, logic. But this didn't feel like a case. It felt like a warning. With a deep exhale, Daniel shifted the car into drive. All right, kid, he muttered, glancing at the puppy, who was now staring at the road ahead, waiting for him to move. Show me where we need to go. The tires rolled forward, and the night swallowed them whole. The house at that time forgot. The road stretched before them, a dark ribbon cutting through the silence of the night. Lieutenant Daniel Hayes' knuckles were white against the steering wheel, his mind tangled in questions that had no logical answers. The small German Shepherd puppy sat rigid beside him, eyes fixed on the road ahead, as if it knew exactly where they were going. Daniel had worked countless cases in his career. He had seen people lie, stories twist, and truth blur into shadows. But this was something different. This was something that didn't fit into a report. A child who disappeared 6 years ago. A message written today. A dog that shouldn't exist. His gut told him he was heading towards something that wouldn't make sense. Something he might not be ready to understand. The dispatcher's voice still echoed in his mind. Samuel Carter. Missing, presumed dead. Case closed. And yet, the note in his hand, crumpled, desperate, fresh, said otherwise. Daniel glanced at the puppy. It hadn't relaxed for a second. Its small chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, and every so often, It let out a soft whimper, as if urging him to move faster. "All right, kid," Daniel muttered under his breath. "We're going." The road took a sharp curve, leading to the outskirts of town, where the houses grew fewer, the streetlights dimmer, and the spaces between homes stretched into nothingness. Then, out of nowhere, the puppy barked. Sharp, urgent. Daniel's pulse jumped. It wasn't random. The dog's ears were pinned forward, its tiny body pressed against the door. It was focused on something. Daniel hit the brakes. The patrol car skidded to a stop, tires crunching over loose gravel. His headlights flooded the side of the road, illuminating a rusted, leaning mailbox. "Carter." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Behind the mailbox, barely visible beneath the overgrown trees and tangled weeds, sat an old house. It had once been blue, but time had stripped the paint away, leaving behind a faded, healing husk. Ivy clung to the sides, creeping up toward the shattered remains of a second-story window. The front porch sagged under the weight of neglect. Samuel Carter's house. The house where the boy had gone to sleep one night and never woke up. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. The puppy let out a low whimper, its tiny nose pressed against the glass. It was looking at the house. It knew. Daniel turned off the engine and exhaled slowly. Every instinct screamed at him that this was a bad idea. But he was already opening the door. The cold air hit him instantly. The night smelled of damp earth and old wood. Something about the air felt wrong, like it had been undisturbed for too long. He rounded the car and bent down, unfastening the door. The puppy leaped out before he could even lift it. It landed with urgency, paws pressing into the dirt, tail low, body tense. Daniel watched as it took one cautious step toward the house, then another. He followed. The front yard was a mess of wild grass and dead leaves that crunched under his boots. The air was thick, too thick. When he reached the porch, he stopped. The front door was ajar. Not broken, not kicked in, just open, as if someone had been waiting for him. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. He reached for his flashlight, clicked it on, and slowly pushed the door wider. The hinges wailed in protest. The puppy let out a soft whine, hesitating at the threshold. Daniel understood why. The air inside smelled wrong. Dust, damp wood, and something else. Something faint, something sharp. He took a step inside. The wooden floor creaked beneath his weight. The flashlight cut through the dark, revealing an entryway frozen in time. Furniture sat draped in white sheets, untouched. A piano stood against the wall, its yellowed keys exposed, as if someone had been about to play, but never got the chance. Daniel's flashlight passed over the staircase, leading to the second floor. Lining the walls were old family photographs. A man, a woman, and a boy. Daniel stopped breathing. The last photograph was of Samuel Carter, a 7-year-old with bright, wide eyes and a gap-toothed smile. His small hand clutched something in the picture, a stuffed bear. But something was wrong. His eyes were scratched out. Daniel's pulse thundered. The puppy whimpered, backing up slightly. Then, a sound. Thump. Daniel froze. The sound had come from upstairs. He gripped his flashlight tighter, his breath slowing, heart hammering against his ribs. The puppy stood beside him, ears perked, body stiff. Then another sound. A whisper. "Help me." Daniel's blood ran cold. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't his imagination. It was a voice. A child's voice. The flashlight flickered. At the top of the stairs, a shadow moved. Daniel's hand tightened on his radio, but for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure what to say. The puppy let out a soft, broken whimper. Daniel swallowed hard. And then, against every rational thought, he started climbing the stairs. The truth that changes everything. The wooden steps creaked beneath Lieutenant Daniel Hayes' weight as he climbed the narrow staircase, his flashlight casting long shadows across the peeling wallpaper. The air grew heavier with each step, thick with dust and something else, something unspoken. The German Shepherd puppy followed close behind, its tiny paws barely making a sound, its whimpers growing softer but more urgent. It knew something was waiting at the top. Daniel's grip tightened around his flashlight as he reached the landing. The hallway stretched before him, doors on either side, their frames warped with time. At the end of the corridor, one door stood slightly open, a dim, flickering light spilling through the gap. And then the voice came again. "Help me." Faint, fragile, a whisper that barely belonged to this world. Daniel exhaled, forcing his pulse to slow. He had faced danger before. He had walked into darkness, uncertain of what waited on the other side. But this was different. He pushed the door open. The room was small, bare. Dust particles floated in the air, caught in the beam of his flashlight. The window was cracked, allowing the wind to carry in a faint rustling sound. And in the middle of the floor, a small bed, a child's bed. The sheets were untouched, as if someone had carefully made the bed every single day for the past 6 years. Daniel's flashlight scanned the room. The walls were lined with drawings, crude sketches drawn in a child's shaky hand. And then he saw it. One drawing stood out among the rest. It showed a little boy, holding hands with a dog. A German Shepherd. Daniel's throat went dry. The puppy beside him let out a sharp whimper, stepping forward and placing its paw on the edge of the bed. That's when Daniel noticed it. Something peeking out from beneath the pillow. Slowly, cautiously, he reached down and pulled out a piece of paper. It was old, edges yellowed, crinkled with time, but the handwriting was the same. "Please help me. My name is Sam." Daniel's breath hitched. The exact same message. The exact same note the puppy had carried. His chest tightened. His mind tried to fight it, tried to reason with it, but the truth had already settled in. This wasn't just a case. This was something bigger, something beyond him. The air grew still. The puppy sat down beside him, silent now, waiting. Daniel felt it then, a presence. Not something he could see, but something he could feel. A warmth, a sadness, a quiet goodbye. He exhaled, his gaze drifting to the window. And for a brief second, he swore he saw it. A little boy standing by the glass, smiling. And then he was gone. The weight lifted. The air shifted. The house felt lighter. Daniel let out a long breath, his shoulders loosening for the first time since he arrived. He looked down at the puppy. The small German Shepherd stared up at him, eyes full of something unspoken. And in that moment, Daniel understood. The boy had never been alone. The dog had been waiting, protecting, searching. And now, its job was done. Daniel reached down and ruffled the puppy's fur. "You found him, didn't you?" The puppy let out a small sigh, pressing into his touch. A final act of loyalty. Daniel stood up, the note still in his hand. There was nothing left to investigate. No case to reopen. No suspect to chase. Just a boy who had been lost. And a dog who had never stopped trying to bring him home. Daniel took one last look at the room before stepping out into the hallway, the puppy trotting beside him. This time, as he descended the stairs, it didn't feel like a weight pressing down on his chest. It felt like a release. As he stepped onto the porch, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves around him. It almost sounded like laughter. And for the first time that night, Daniel smiled. "Come on, kid," he murmured, glancing at the puppy. "Let's go home." The little shepherd wagged its tail, and together, they walked into the night. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.